My name is Jennifer Walsh. I'm 31 years old. 8 months ago, I received a FedEx envelope at my office marked Urgent Legal Matter. Inside was a 47-page invoice from my parents, demanding $425,000 for what they called childcare services rendered from birth through age 18. Each year was itemized: food, clothing, shelter, transportation, education expenses. They gave me 60 days to pay, or they'd take me to court. At the bottom of the invoice, in my mother's handwriting, was a note. "We invested in you. Time to pay back what you owe. This is what responsible adults do, Jennifer. Don't disappoint us again." 23 people at my law firm saw that invoice when it was delivered. My secretary opened it, thinking it was a client document. The managing partner asked if I needed legal help. Everyone knew my parents had sent me a bill for being born, but what my parents didn't know was that my grandfather had been keeping his own records for 30 years. What they couldn't have imagined was that 3 months later, when they tried to sue me in civil court, my grandfather's attorney would stand up with bank statements, canceled checks, and receipts proving that they hadn't paid for my childhood at all. That grandpa had. Every single dollar. And when those documents were entered into evidence, when the judge asked my mother to explain the discrepancy, her face went completely white. Before I tell you what happened in that courtroom, please like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time is it there. I love connecting with all of you. Now, let me take you back to where this really began. Growing up in Portland, Oregon, I learned early that love in my family came with a price tag I'd be expected to pay someday. My family. Dad was a real estate agent who talked constantly about investments and returns. Mom had worked in finance before I was born and approached parenting like a business venture. They'd had me late, when they were 39 and 41. I was an only child, which meant all their expectations landed on me alone. I got resources, but I also got reminded constantly that those resources weren't free. When I was 10, I needed braces. Typical kid, crooked teeth, nothing unusual. We had dental insurance that covered 80%, but the remaining portion was $2,400. My parents paid for it, but not before sitting me down for a financial literacy conversation. "This is a $2,400 investment in your future," Dad said. "We expect you to understand that we're making sacrifices for you. Someday, you'll need to contribute back to this family." I was 10. I said thank you and promised to take good care of my teeth, but Mom made me sign a piece of paper, an actual document that said, "I, Jennifer Walsh, acknowledge that my parents are investing $2,400 in my orthodontic care, and I agree to be a good daughter who appreciates this sacrifice." I thought it was weird, but I signed it. What else was a 10-year-old supposed to do? At 14, I made the varsity soccer team. I was thrilled. It meant practices 4 days a week and games on weekends. I'd worked so hard to make that team. My parents sat me down before the first practice. "Soccer fees are $800 for the season," Mom said. "Equipment will be another $300. We're happy to provide this, but we need you to understand that we're now spending $1,100 on your extracurricular activities. That's money we could be saving or investing elsewhere." She pulled out a spreadsheet, an actual Excel file titled Jennifer's Childhood Investment Portfolio. It listed every major expense they'd ever had related to me: daycare, preschool, elementary school fees, summer camps, music lessons I'd taken for 2 years, sports equipment, even my birthday parties. The total at age 14 was $47,000. "We want you to see what it costs to raise a child," Dad said, "so you appreciate what we're doing for you, and so you understand that family means supporting each other. One day we'll be old, and we'll need you to invest in us the way we're investing in you now." I stared at that spreadsheet. I was 14. I hadn't asked to be born, but there was my existence, quantified and calculated down to the dollar. I told myself it was just their way of teaching me to be financially responsible. At 18, I got accepted to college. 3 schools offered me admission. One was a state school where I'd received a full academic scholarship. One was a private university that offered me partial aid. One was an Ivy League school that offered me a spot but minimal financial help. I wanted to go to the state school. Free tuition, great program, I'd graduate debt-free. My parents insisted I go to the Ivy League school. "It's a better investment," Mom said. "The connections, the prestige, the opportunities, you'll make that money back tenfold in your career." "But I'd have to take out $120,000 in loans," I said. "The state school is free." "We'll co-sign your loans," Dad said. "We'll help you. But you're going to the best school. This is your future we're talking about." So I went. I took out $120,000 in student loans with my parents as co-signers, and I went to an Ivy League school because they told me to. I worked 3 jobs during college to minimize borrowing. I graduated with $94,000 in debt instead of the full amount. I was proud of that. My parents gave me $500 as a graduation gift and a card that said, "You're welcome for the opportunities we provided." I started tracking things then. Not formally, but I noticed. I noticed that they never mentioned the scholarship I'd turned down. Never acknowledged that I'd worked myself to exhaustion to reduce my own debt. Never recognized that I'd graduated with honors while working 30 hours a week. They took credit for my success, but none of the responsibility for pushing me into debt. After college, I went to law school. I got into a top-tier program and received a partial scholarship. I graduated 3 years later with another $150,000 in loans. Total debt? $244,000. I got a job at a prestigious law firm in Seattle. Starting salary was $190,000, which sounds like a lot until you factor in student loan payments of $2,800 per month, rent in Seattle, and trying to build any kind of financial stability. I was 28, working 80-hour weeks, slowly climbing out of debt. That's when everything fell apart. It was a Tuesday in September. I was at the office working on a merger case. My secretary buzzed me. "Jennifer, you have a FedEx delivery marked Urgent Legal Matter. Should I open it?" "Yes, go ahead," I said, assuming it was something from opposing counsel. I heard her gasp through the intercom. "Jennifer, you need to come out here." I walked to her desk. She was holding a thick document, her face pale. "What is it?" "It's an invoice from your parents." I took it from her hands. The cover page read, "Invoice for services rendered to Jennifer Marie Walsh from Robert and Patricia Walsh. Services, childcare, education support, and general life maintenance. Period. June 15, 1993 to June 15, 2011. Birth to age 18. Total amount due? $425,000. Payment due date? November 30th. 60 days from receipt." I flipped through 47 pages of itemized expenses. Hospital birth costs? $8,000. Diapers and formula, years 0 through 3, $12,000. Childcare or preschool, $45,000. Food and clothing, $6,000 times 18 years, $108,000. Housing allocation, $72,000. Transportation costs, $28,000. Education expenses, $95,000. Medical and dental, $35,000. Extracurriculars, $22,000. Every birthday present was listed, every Christmas gift, every vacation they'd taken me on, with my portion of the hotel and flight costs calculated. At the bottom, in my mother's handwriting, "We invested in you. Time to pay back what you owe. This is what responsible adults do, Jennifer. Don't disappoint us again." I stood in the middle of my law firm's reception area, holding an invoice for my childhood, while my secretary and 3 associates stared at me in horror. "Is this real?" my secretary whispered. I think so, I said numbly. I took the document to my office and closed the door. Then I called my parents. Did you receive the invoice? Mom answered. No hello, no greeting. Are you serious right now? I asked. Completely serious. Your father and I have been discussing this for months. We invested significant resources in you, and now that you're successful, it's time you paid us back. You're billing me for being your child? We're billing you for services rendered, she corrected. If we'd invested that $425,000 in the stock market instead of in you, it would be worth over $1 million now. We chose to invest in you. You owe us a return on that investment. I'm your daughter, not a stock portfolio. Don't be dramatic, Jennifer. This is a simple business transaction. You benefited from our resources. Now we expect compensation. We've given you 60 days. That's generous. And if I don't pay? Then we'll pursue legal action. We have documentation for every expense. We're prepared to take this to court if necessary. I hung up. My hands were shaking. I sat there for an hour trying to process that my parents had actually sent me a bill for raising me, that they'd calculated and itemized every dollar they'd spent on my existence and decided I owed them. I called the one person I knew would understand. My grandfather lived on the coast, about 2 hours from Seattle. He was 84, sharp as ever, the only family member who'd ever made me feel unconditionally loved. Grandpa, did you know about this? I asked after explaining the invoice. There was a long silence. Your mother mentioned something to me a few months ago, he said quietly. I told her she was making a terrible mistake. I told her this would destroy your relationship. She didn't listen. I don't know what to do. Come see me this weekend, Grandpa said. I need to show you something. Bring that invoice. That Saturday, I drove to his house. He was waiting on the porch with a banker's box full of files. Sit down, Jenny, he said, using the nickname only he was allowed to use. I need to tell you some things about your childhood that you don't know. He opened the box. Inside were folders organized by year, from 1993 to 2011. Your parents didn't pay for most of your childhood, Grandpa said. I did. When you were born, they were in severe financial trouble. Your dad had made bad real estate investments. They were $200,000 in debt and couldn't afford a child. He showed me bank statements from 1993. Wire transfers. $50,000. I gave them money to cover hospital costs and the first year. I told them it was a gift for you. He opened folder after folder. Canceled checks, bank transfers, receipts. Private school tuition? I paid $18,000 per year for 10 years directly to the school. He showed me the checks. Made out to Portland Academy. Signed by him. Your braces? I paid for those. $2,400 directly to the orthodontist. Soccer fees, summer camps, college application fees? All me. I gave your parents money every year, specifically designated for you. They were supposed to tell you it was from me. They never did. I couldn't speak. Over 18 years, I gave them $267,000 for your care and education, Grandpa said. I kept every record, every check, every transfer, every receipt. Because I didn't trust them, Jennifer. I knew your mother kept spreadsheets. I knew she viewed everything as a transaction. He pulled out one more document. A letter, handwritten, dated from 2005. When you were 12, I confronted your mother about not telling you that I was funding your education. Do you know what she said? I shook my head. She said, Dad, Jennifer doesn't need to know. It's easier if she thinks it's coming from us. We're building her character by teaching her about financial responsibility and debt. She turned my gifts to you into lessons about what you owed them. I started crying. They didn't invest in you, sweetheart. I did. And it wasn't an investment. It was love. I never expected you to pay me back because that's not how love works. He handed me a business card. "This is my attorney, Michael Rivera. He's been my lawyer for 30 years. I've already talked to him about your situation. If your parents actually try to sue you, Michael will represent you, and he'll present every single one of these documents in court." "Grandpa, I can't let you—" "You're not letting me do anything," he said firmly. "I'm choosing to do this. Those records prove that most of what they're claiming you owe, they never actually paid for. They're trying to bill you for money I gave them. That's fraud, Jennifer." Over the next 6 weeks, my parents' attorneys sent 3 more letters demanding payment, each one more aggressive than the last. I didn't respond. I was working with Michael Rivera, Grandpa's attorney. On day 58, 2 days before their deadline, my parents filed a lawsuit, civil court, suing for $425,000 plus legal fees and interest. They were actually doing this. The first hearing was scheduled for 3 months later. My parents' attorney was someone from a small firm who thought this was a slam-dunk case. Michael Rivera was 67 years old, a partner at one of Oregon's most respected firms, and he walked into that courtroom with 3 boxes of evidence. The courtroom was small, meant for civil cases. About 30 people were there, court staff, a few law students observing, and my parents with their attorney. My parents looked confident. Mom was wearing her best suit. Dad had his serious business expression on. They genuinely thought they were going to win. The judge was a woman in her 50s named Judge Patterson. She looked at the case file with visible skepticism. "Let me make sure I understand," she said. "The plaintiffs are suing their adult daughter for the cost of raising her from birth to 18? "That's correct, Your Honor," my parents' attorney said. "We have documentation showing $425,000 in expenses directly related to the defendant's care, education, and upbringing. The plaintiffs believe they're entitled to compensation now that the defendant is financially stable and earning a substantial income." "I see," Judge Patterson said dryly. "And does the defendant wish to respond?" Michael Rivera stood. "Your Honor, the defense disputes not only the premise of this lawsuit, but also the factual accuracy of the claimed expenses." "On what grounds?" "On the grounds that the majority of expenses listed were never actually paid by the plaintiffs." He opened one of his boxes. "The defense has bank records, canceled checks, and wire transfer receipts showing that approximately $267,000 of the claimed $425,000 was actually paid by the defendant's grandfather, Mr. Thomas Walsh, who is present in the courtroom today." Every head turned to look at Grandpa, sitting quietly in the back row. My mother's face drained of color. "Your Honor, may I approach with evidence?" Michael asked. "Please do." For the next hour, Michael presented document after document. Bank statements showing transfers from Grandpa's account to my parents' account, marked, "For Jennifer's education." Canceled checks made out directly to Portland Academy for my tuition. $18,000 per year for 10 years, all signed by Grandpa. Receipts from my orthodontist, summer camps, SAT prep, all funded by him. These records show that the plaintiffs accepted $267,000 from Mr. Thomas Walsh, specifically designated for the defendant's care and education, Michael said. The plaintiffs then failed to inform the defendant of this financial support, instead leading her to believe they were personally funding her upbringing. They are now attempting to bill the defendant for expenses they never actually paid. Judge Patterson looked at my parents' attorney. "Do you have any response to this?" The young attorney looked panicked. "Your Honor, my clients didn't inform me of any third-party payments. I was given a list of expenses and told that—" "I'm asking your clients," the judge interrupted. "Mrs. Walsh, did your father provide the financial support Mr. Rivera has documented?" My mother stood up slowly. "Your Honor, my father did provide some assistance over the years, but—" "Some assistance? Or $267,000? "He gave us money, yes, but we still had expenses. We still sacrificed. Did you inform your daughter that her grandfather was paying for her education? Silence. Mrs. Walsh, I asked you a question. We didn't think it was necessary to specify where the money came from, Mom said. We were managing her care. The source of funding wasn't relevant. The source of funding is extremely relevant when you're billing her for that funding, Judge Patterson said sharply. You accepted money from your father, specifically earmarked for your daughter's expenses. You never told her about it, and you're now attempting to charge her for those same expenses. Do you see the problem here? My father stood up. Your Honor, we still spent money on Jennifer beyond what my father-in-law provided. We still deserve... Deserve? The judge's voice was ice. Let me be very clear. Parents do not deserve compensation for fulfilling their basic legal and moral obligation to care for the children they chose to have. The fact that you itemized every diaper, every meal, every birthday present tells me you viewed your daughter as a debtor from birth. That's not parenting. That's indentured servitude. The courtroom was completely silent. This lawsuit is dismissed, Judge Patterson said. Not only is it without legal merit, it borders on fraud. Mrs. and Mr. Walsh, you attempted to collect $267,000 for expenses you never paid. Had you succeeded, that would have constituted theft. She looked at their attorney. I suggest you have a serious conversation with your clients about ethics and honesty. I'm awarding legal fees to the defendant. You have 30 days to pay her attorney's costs. She banged the gavel. My parents sat there, stunned. Mom was shaking. Dad looked like he might be sick. As we left the courtroom, my mother tried to approach me. Jennifer, we need to talk about this. We didn't mean... Don't, I said quietly. You sent me an invoice for being born. You itemized my childhood and sent me a bill. And now we know you were billing me for money you never even spent. We have nothing to talk about. We're your parents, Dad said. You're people who raised me while keeping a running tab, I corrected. That's not the same thing. Grandpa stepped between us. Patricia, Robert, you should leave. Now. They left. I never saw them look so small. Outside the courthouse, Grandpa hugged me. You're free now, he said. Free from their accounting, their scorekeeping, their transactional love. Thank you, I whispered. For everything. For paying for my childhood. For keeping the records. For standing up for me. You never needed to thank me, he said. That's the difference between love and investment. Love doesn't demand returns. That was 7 months ago. My parents have made a few attempts to contact me. Emails saying they overreacted and want to repair our relationship. I haven't responded. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done. I paid Grandpa's legal fees despite his protests. I also set up a trust fund for when he eventually needs care. Not because I owe him, because I love him. That's what he taught me. The difference between obligation and love, between debt and gift, between investing in someone and truly caring for them. Here's what I want you to understand if you're watching this. Your existence is not a debt. Your childhood is not a loan. Your parents' choice to have you and raise you is not something you owe them for. If your family is keeping score, tallying everything they've done for you and holding it over your head, that's not love. That's manipulation. Real love doesn't come with an invoice. Real support doesn't have strings. Real family doesn't treat you like an investment that needs to generate returns. I spent 28 years believing I owed my parents for my existence. That every opportunity, every resource, every dollar spent was a debt I'd need to repay. I was wrong. And if someone is making you feel the same way, they're wrong too. You don't owe your parents for choosing to have you. You don't owe them for fulfilling their basic responsibility to feed, clothe, and shelter the child they created. You don't owe them for providing education or opportunities. Those things are what parents should do out of love, not investment strategy. If they're keeping receipts, they're not keeping you in their hearts. I'm building my own family now. friends who love without conditions, mentors who support without invoices, and Grandpa, who showed me what unconditional love looks like. I'm 31 years old, and I'm finally free from the ledger of my childhood. You can be too. Drop a comment and tell me your story. Has your family ever made you feel like you owe them for raising you? How did you break free from that mindset? I read every comment, and I'm here for you. Thank you for listening to mine.